And we're live. Hey, welcome to Global Topic Live. I'm Jim Kunkel, and let me bring in my guest, David Reve from Reve Coding Consultants. David, can you hear me okay?
Yes, can hear you loud and clear.
Great, great. What I wanted to do is open up this stream and have you cover your professional background. And then if you could talk a little bit about Reve Coding Consultants, what your firm does and everything like that.
Yeah, absolutely. In 2011, I believe, went for my NACE CIP level 1 and was blessed to be on the BNY Mellon building project in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And from there, went to water towers, bridges, wastewater treatment, and then ended up in South Florida doing marine as well as the luxury super yachts, which is an interesting one to say the least. And my firm is now three years old at this time, and we cover everything from pipelines to offshore oil rigs to bridges, water towers, any coating or corrosion related consultancy, inspections, failure analysis, root cause. We have a few labs that we use depending on the situations, but yeah, we can pretty much cover any and all testing needs as well.
So, many in the industry, they, have different aspects of inspection that's done related to coatings and assessments as well. So, when we're looking at like an industrial coating inspector versus a marine coatings inspector, what are some of the similarities and some of the differences between both, let's say, both hats that are worn by inspectors?
It's an interesting question because they're very close up until the outer 2 or 3 layers of their coating system. A bulk of the coating systems on the yachts is epoxies and resurfacers, fillers, the same from a chemical level. They're pretty similar to what's used on bridges and everything else, as far as its structural integrity and tensile strength, all of that. And then on the outermost layer is basically a car paint job, which is pretty impressive, given the environments that they're exposed to.
So as a marine inspector, marines coatings inspector, what are some of the processes that you go through that, say, for example, an industrial coatings inspector, if inspecting on a bridge or maybe a pipeline, what are some of the differences that you do versus other inspectors?
I would say the biggest difference, not really a difference, it's more or less just what areas to pay attention to more than others. And that's the same, when doing concrete compared to steel, or all based on the substrates that are involved. And that's the same for the boats, the yachts, because they come in FRP, fiberglass reinforced, as well as steel, aluminum. Many of them are a mixture of metals, which is always galvanic corrosion is always a worry. And I'm not even entirely sure if how aware the industry is on that. I'm sure that there's plenty of, well experienced guys that are building these. These are just the little things that can slip through the cracks if someone isn't, paying attention.
It must be impressive to be on these super yachts. I know you and we've known each other for some time. I know what you do. I've actually seen some of the photographs of the vessels that you are inspecting and overseeing. Could you describe some of the sizes of these yachts?
Yeah. So there's actually, the yachting industry itself has its own terminology, and that was the hardest thing, in my honest opinion. That was the hardest thing to learn, because you have to learn it as fast as possible. Even if you just want to spit it out like this, the way that the industry is, it's a very niche thing, and they have their own language. But the boats range from I think it's like 20 feet up to, I believe, 80 feet. Or no, I'm sorry, 40 to 85 feet is a yacht. 85 to 150 or 200 or 199 is a super yacht. Then over 200 to, I believe, 600 feet in length, that's when it becomes like mega yachts. I just did one recently that was 262 and a half feet long, and it had 5 decks on it. It has garage doors that swing open. The body of the yacht opens up and goes into the water, which raises questions with the coating system, submerging the coating system. So that's an example of the complexities. But it was a $120 million vessel that these boats take 6 months to a year to actually, from start to finish, build up all the different layers and produce a super yacht quality finish.
It must be impressive. I know one of the photographs you shared with me, it had a halo deck for a helicopter to be able to land, and some of the immensities when it comes to the size of the yachts, but also to the luxuries that are inside these yachts. And, obviously the different types of coating systems. What are typically some of the coatings that you're putting on these or inspecting that are on these super yachts?
So one perfect example, Axo Nobel. They own International. They own All Grip. Interlux makes their anti-fouling coatings. They make above and below and internal, like the interior of the vessels, because the vessels also have mini wastewater treatment plants on board to treat their waste while at sea. So we use, I've recommended Sherwin-Williams products on the interior of tanks, and it ranges. Surface tolerant epoxies are a big go-to for bilges and areas that are going to be rough. Like while once the vessel's been constructed and is out in service, it is really challenging because of the salts, the oils, the grease. Plus, you have a finished interior. So then surface prep becomes a challenge, really big challenge, because you're carrying a blast nozzle and blast line through a luxury home, essentially.
So, when it comes to let's say the surface preparation and the blasting, obviously it's going to be a different level of craftsmanship than, let's say, blasting a bridge or some other type of structure. What type of, detailed skills that are really required to surface prep on these vessels?
So it is identical.
Oh, it is.
Yep. It's just challenging in how the process is done. I really tip my hat to the, guys, girls, and young kids that are paid to climb into tanks and blast it like it would be a bridge, except they're in a 3 foot by 3 foot cube chambers, basically. So you have to crawl in, and it's not a fun job, that's for sure. So that kudos to those guys, because I've met some of the best blasters this way, because they're able to do, very tight areas. Attention to detail is the only way you can successfully blast something like that, because it's so easy to get spun around and forget even where you are, even as an inspector. There's areas where you have to question if you should even climb towards there. You might get stuck, and no one wants that. So there's definitely some unique challenges with the surface prep compared to any of the other structures. The other big one is that this is one of the few assets that moves. So from regulations even on what kind of medias, what kind of materials can be used. Like California doesn't allow a lot of anti-foulings that can harm the crustaceans and anything like that. But as soon as they go, I think it's like 12 miles out to sea, it's international waters, and other countries don't have any rules and regulations. So that's where, like, I always keep a quick lead check type test kit with me just in case, because if it hasn't happened yet, I'm sure it's going to at some point.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, obviously related to safety, because you never know. A lot of these super yachts, I would imagine they're probably produced in parts of Europe, parts of Asia as well.
Yep.
And you really don't know what's going into that ship.
Yeah.
When it comes to toxic substance and things like that. So, you had talked about anti-foulings and things like that. So obviously a lot of these larger vessels have to have anti-foulings. They're done, regularly. How often are they being assessed when it comes to, the let's say the operational efficiency of the coating system or the anti-fouling system?
So the anti-fouling on the vessels is replaced every other year. And that's pretty, like the barrier coat, the primer is usually they can pretty much go right over that again. Just sand off the whatever's remaining and reapply. I always like to have a nice fresh coat of primer, but some boats just want to get it done quick. But it's the below the waterline coating system is a lot different compared to the one above it. It's usually a 2 primer, 2 coats of anti-fouling, maybe 3, and that's it. Above it is 6 to 13 layers. So, there's the transition from above to below is very gray, because obviously the water line will move depending on the weight of the vessel, how much fuel it has, that kind of stuff. So there's a lot that goes into marking where that water line is, and kind of essentially guesstimating, because the above the water line coating system is not meant for immersion, but it can be splashed. So that's where it gets, there's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and I've had the opportunity, obviously, in talking with you and getting a little bit of more knowledge when it comes to the types of inspections that you're doing. The documentation is very critical, and you go through and you not only do photographic evidence, but you have a lot of even laboratory analysis and other type of testings that you do. Typically, how do you manage all that documentation?
So, I actually brought in a good friend of mine who is IT implementation manager, and we took a CRM and customized it to what we needed to do. Shout out to Mike Arnold. He's up in Pittsburgh, actually. We put in a lot of time and effort into that, because tracking what goes on with these boats it's challenging, because when they go out to sea, they might, bump into another boat, and then there's a repair done that no one is made aware of. Some captains and some boats have excellent programs where they're documenting everything, which is fantastic to see. Other boats, because captains change from boat to boat, they can change owners and captains and everything. So it can be challenging for them to even keep that information going. So that's something that we're already, just by doing our job, we're collecting this kind of information that can be very useful to the paint contractors, that are going to be doing a repair or repainting for something. If there's a material that no one knows is on there, that can impact the compatibility of another product, if they're not careful. So that's just the documentation, something that we're putting a lot of time and effort into for multiple reasons. Not only just for documentation purposes, but to try to build almost a database so that contractors know exactly what they're getting into, when they get these boats. Because I don't know, I don't like to see and this happens in the wastewater treatment plants, where it's like a blind bid. They don't drain the tanks. Contractor goes in, and I get why they have to do it, but it makes it challenging, and it's asking for change orders and troubles down the road. So there's a lot of areas of improving on efficiency that I think that companies like mine and other companies out there like AMP, NACE, SSPC, any of the organizations, that's essentially what we're attempting to do, is try to prevent these issues, improve processes that will produce better quality.
When it comes to, you're talking about really helping out the industry and really focusing on quality and, in the aspect of the inspection side of it, David, you and I, obviously we've been friends for some time. You're very passionate about not only about being an inspector, but also owning a firm. But also when it comes to this industry called protective coatings, you have a lot of passion to it. What advice do you have for someone who might be coming up career-wise? They might be a craft worker looking to get into inspection. What would you say to them if they were to say, David, what kind of advice would you give me?
Honestly, getting into AMP, NACE, SSPC, any of those the more certifications you can get and the more experience, I want to say this with caution, don't bounce around and just get a little bit of experience, but get a lot of experience in a lot of different things, because it'll just make you more versatile. I feel like in the next few years, there may or may not be, enough of us. So it's going to be best to be as versatile as possible.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. Obviously the challenge here in North America, we're having difficulty really finding, individuals that get into being, blasters, applicators, and working on these industrial coating projects. The same thing I can see happening eventually in the coatings inspection side, because, you have a lot of, let's say senior inspectors out there that are getting to a point where they're going to be retiring, and you have to look at what type of backfill there's going to be when it comes to the quality. And, I've, over the years, working at SSPC, I've come in contact with a lot of craft workers who definitely are very passionate about the job they do, but they also realize that it might be difficult to be a blaster when you get in your 40s and you start getting close to, 50. You're going to be looking to kind of move into another career path, and inspection is definitely one to focus on. And, the best inspectors, well, in my opinion, I think the best inspectors are the ones that have been there and done it.
Absolutely.
And, yeah.
Absolutely.
And
I worked for a paint contractor. I spent a year on the Mellon building as an inspector. And then the following year I worked for Superior Painting up in Pittsburgh. And Sammy and Nick, still to this day, I will, always appreciate the time that I spent with that company because of how much, I learned. It was just, and I recommend, I did that with my brother, actually. Before bringing him on, I had him go to work for Champion. And he was a helper and was sucking grit and mixing paint and just anything. It gets you, it shows you what the other side goes through, and it makes you a little bit more mindful when it comes to making your decisions on what passes, what fails, especially for those, feel like, you have the inspectors are the ones that make that decision. And there is, some wiggle room there that we all kind of have to, work together on, essentially. And just having that experience, it makes it for a much smoother working relationship with all the contractors. So I definitely agree.
That's great advice, David. I do appreciate this opportunity for you to join me this today on this second test on live stream. I'm actually this live stream is going across my YouTube channel, but also on Facebook as well. And the reason why I'm doing this, I'm getting prepared for February 24th, Wednesday, February 24th, I will have my debut live stream event, which is going to be called Pandemic and PPE 1 year later. And I'll have a special guest from Bullard. We're going to be talking about their Herculean effort when it came to mobilizing to produce PPE for frontline healthcare workers and other providers. But also, too, they were able to continue to support the PPE needs of the industrial coatings and also for inspectors as well. So I think that's a good story to kind of launch my first multi-stream on. It'll be on LinkedIn, my YouTube channel, and also on Facebook as well. For everyone watching, currently this platform, I'm testing it out. StreamYard is the name of the platform. Seems to be very, very friendly, very easy to work with. And so, I'll get better as I do more live streams. The cool thing about a live stream, it's in real life. So I don't get a chance to edit. And if people got to see how many times I do take, retake, retake to get the right look or right sound, it's amazing. And David, I think what also too, what I'd like to be able to do with you is, maybe we can look at a future date here, and maybe we could do an inspector panel and bring different global inspectors in and talk about the industry and the challenges and successes and things like that. What do you think about that?
I think that's an excellent idea. Excellent, because I do think this is a global, thing. This is, it doesn't matter what country you're in. Corrosion is corrosion. It doesn't matter, geographically. There's conditions that make it worse, being near salt water and that kind of stuff. But this is a big, I think it's a big opportunity for a lot of the younger generation to get into something that's technical, that actually makes an impact on how society, it's the infrastructure of that. It's the stuff that everybody takes for granted, unfortunately. But once you see this side of things, it's a lot, you have a much different perspective on how the world kind of runs.
No, I absolutely agree. And, like a lot of people saying it's the truth. None of us woke up when we were, young children and said, I want to get into coatings, or I want to be a coatings inspector.
Yep.
You probably wanted to be, do something else, be a, sports star or something else.
I think anything but coatings is what wanted, but
exactly. So, I've had many different jobs, but, the nice thing about being involved in this industry is that everyone is very passionate. We're a very close community when you think about it. And then the other thing too is the messaging that we really need to get out there to educate, inform people. And that's why I really like having a platform and getting out there and talking to everybody. And also too, recognizing, David, you're the same way. You're very passionate. You're somebody who obviously is going to be an influencer moving forward. And I commend you for that.
I appreciate it. And it's, like we've discussed before, this industry changed my life, for the bet. I don't think it could have gotten better had I not, gone this route. Even though I actively tried to stay out of it, it sucked me in, and I'm so happy and so grateful for the opportunities and just the people that have come into my life from this, from this industry. It's been a real blessing, and I have, colleagues that I consider, close to being a family, spread across the U.S. that I've met on job sites where, we've both risked our life to climb into this nasty tank or climb up on this bridge. And, it's the camaraderie that comes with it is one of my favorite parts. So I think for AMP to move forward with bringing the younger generation in, that's a great place to start, I think.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much, David, for joining me this evening, and also to appreciate everybody who's watching, and also who will watch in the rebroadcast of this. It will be available, obviously, on the platforms on demand. If you aren't a subscriber or following me, please do that. And also, too, make sure that you do subscribe and you set notifications so that when I do have either live streams or content coming across, please you'll have an opportunity to take a look at that. So thank you, David.
Yep. Thank you.
All right. And that'll be it for everybody. I really appreciate this opportunity this evening. Thank you very much.